Hi, my name is LC, and this is my testimony. So I grew up on the north side of St. Louis. I grew up in a two-parent home. You know, my mother, she worked really hard to try and provide for me and my siblings. But my father, he was addicted to drugs and alcohol. So that pretty much hindered his ability to be a good father. You know, the neighborhood I grew up in, it was drug infested, gang infested. You know, as a child, I was pretty athletic, you know, so around the age of 11, you know, I walked into a boxing gym and I pretty much fell in love with the sport. At the age of 14, I abandoned that dream and I became influenced by the things that I saw going on in my neighborhood. So I wanted to, you know, partake in this gangster lifestyle, so to speak. By the age of 19, my parents had separated. You know, I ended up experimenting with crack cocaine, and once I done that, my life had pretty much spiraled out of control for the next 15 years. I became homeless, you know, I became a part-time father. I had gotten shot, in and out of jails, in and out of rehabs. So I ended up going into treatment in 2005 for what I thought was the last time. And I stayed clean for almost 5 years. So in 2010, I ended up relapsing. And needless to say, that pretty much started that vicious cycle all over again. In addition to that, I picked up a heroin habit as well. In 2017, you know, my only child, you know, she was 22 years old. She ended up ODing on fentanyl. And that right there pretty much brought me to my knees. That was pretty much the worst emotional pain that I had ever experienced in my life. But I continued to use for another year and a half. I myself ended up ODing twice. So I had gotten into some trouble. So in 2019, I had some warrants out in St. Louis County. I had a probation violation. I ended up turning myself in because I felt like prison could potentially preserve my life. I ended up getting a 4-year suspended sentence for a 1-year long-term treatment out at OCC. Pastor John and some members from Freedom City Church would come out there. You know, Pastor John shared his testimony. He shared the gospel in such a way that I had never heard it before. It was so powerful that it pierced my heart. So one day I was walking around the track with a guy that I had just knew from the neighborhood, and I looked at him and I told him, I said, hey man, when I get out of here, I'm giving my life to Jesus. And at that time, I didn't know what that meant, but what I did know was that I had tried everything else and nothing else had seemed to work. When I got out, I ended up in Springfield. I didn't know I was going to end up in Springfield, but I told myself if I end up in Springfield, I'm going to visit Freedom City Church. And lo and behold, I was accepted into the Victory Mission program. And for me, the first sign that I knew God was working in my life was that Victory Mission program is probably about 100 yards away from Freedom City Church. So my first time attending Freedom City Church in person, you know, I was walking down the street, I was talking to myself, just laughing, cars was passing by, you know, people was just looking at me like I was crazy. But I was just so excited to attend this church in person for the first time. You know, I want to thank Freedom City Church, all its members, its pastoral team for just continuing to encourage me, you know, to just want to walk this thing out, to remain steadfast in this walk and just walk this thing out.